For this project, we're going to use Autodesk Meshmixer, which is this kind of reddish colored polyhedron icon, and we're going to take two 3D files and we're going to put them together. So I'm going to go ahead and start Meshmixer. I already have the two files that I'm going to use saved to the desktop so that I can easily find them. So once Meshmixer has started, we're going to go to Import, and we're going to find one of those two files that we want to use. So here's the first one. We'll import that. It may take a second. The higher the resolution, the file that you're using, the longer it's going to take to come in. Just a couple of things. If we want to rotate, we can use the right mouse button to rotate. If we want to move our file, we push down on the scroll wheel. And then we can move it around. If we want to zoom in and out, we can use the scroll wheel to zoom in and out. So I have the first one here. I'm going to go ahead and import the second file. I want to click Append. I don't want to do Replace because then it will take this one out and put the new one in its place. And here's my second one. Yes. It'll just put them so that they're a reasonable distance from one another. You might have to zoom out a little bit to be able to find them. Okay, so I have both of them kind of in an odd plane, but that's fine at this point. Don't worry about the size difference too at this point. Now, a few things that we can do with Meshmixer. To start with, we're going to want to go to the Edit menu, and it's going to pull up some other options for us. To move, rotate, or scale either of these files, we're going to use the Transform button. So I'm going to start with that. It transforms, since my head was selected, that's the one that comes in. I can move it on any of the axes by using the arrows. I can rotate it as well by using those curved bars that are next to it. Just like most other programs, Control-Z will undo what you've just done. So I'm going to start by kind of getting my head oriented about the same as on the Hulk here. I'm going to move it in a little bit so it's a little bit closer. I have to move that up. And now we're going to go ahead and scale this. There's a couple of ways that we can do that. If we want to scale something just on one axis, we can use these boxes above the arrow. But as you can see, that distorts our original file. We can come over here and we can punch in a number. So let's go 0.5. We'll change it to 50%. Make sure uniform scaling is selected. Hit enter, and it shrunk it. So we can see that's still a little big, so let's take that down a little more and see if we can get closer. Let's go 0.3. We're going to accept that. And let's go ahead and move it closer and see how we're looking. We're probably still going to have to shrink that a little bit. Now it's saying 1, so we'll have to go based off of that. Let's try 0.75%. What it is now. I might even need to take that down a little more. 0.65. There we go. We'll go with that. We'll hit accept. And I'm going to go and move it so it's just a little bit closer. Zoom in a little bit. Now my next thing is going to be, and we could have scaled this too. We don't have to worry about our overall size at this point. Next thing is going to be to figure out where am I going to join the two objects, because first I'm going to have to cut them down a little bit, and then I'm going to put them together. Looking at my head here, and I'm going to slide this out a little bit so I have some room. It's looking like right along here is going to be a good place to join, along with right here on the hole. Excuse me. There's a couple ways we can get this cut down. Okay, I'm going to hit accept. We can do a plane cut. So if we want to make sure that we have a perfectly straight cut, we can do that. This plane right here is where it's going to cut. So I could rotate that however I want. And if I did plane cut, it would get rid of everything below that, and it would save what's above. Because these files, it would go ahead and it would cut off part of this potentially as well. The other thing we can do, if we hit select, we can use the brush and we can draw a line across here. In this case, it would want to get rid of the head, which is probably not going to work. So we're going to hit escape on that. We're going to do select again. We're going to click on lasso. So for that, we can draw our line again, just like we've done before, but we need to loop it back around. That was not what I expected to happen. Clear selection. Sorry, it's being kind of odd. Let's try this again. Oh, still wants to go with what's on top. Let's spin around and try it. There we go. So now this orange part that's highlighted is what we want to get rid of. We can hit clear selection and it will do that, or we can just hit the delete button and it will delete that. As I zoom in here, I have some other stuff that I'm going to want to get rid of, part of my shirt that's left out here. So I'm going to use that again, and I'm going to get some of that trimmed up. There we go. And it doesn't have to be perfect at this point. When I look on that side, I have this little section over here. If I just click select, I can click on that and hit delete, and this little bit here, I'm going to get rid of those as well. Okay, so now I've trimmed my head down to a point where I think I can make it match up with the Hulk. So I'm going to come in and I'm going to do the same thing here. I'm going to go select, I'm going to use the lasso, and I'm going to go ahead and get rid of that. Why doesn't it want to? Oh, there we go. I have to click on that. That's highlighted now. Now I can do the select. Again, use lasso. I'm going to highlight his head. I'm going to hit delete. Now we may, okay, we can see right there I accidentally cut some of his chest. That's going to be a problem. So we're going to undo that with Control Z, and we're going to try again. Sometimes it's a matter of rotating it so that you can get the position that you want. Okay, so we're good that time. We'll go ahead and hit delete. We can see we got rid of that. Now we have one little part right here that we're going to have to get rid of. Why it's not wanting to do that, so we'll use the lasso. There we go. Okay, so now we got rid of that. We've got his head, we have mine. Or his body, my head. I'm going to highlight mine, go back to edit, transform, and now I'm going to drag it over to where I want it to be. We can do some fine tuning as we rotate. We can move it around a little bit. Ideally, we want to get to where our cuts match up close or overlap. You can see right here my head sticks off a little too far to the right. So zoom this, move that back a little bit. That looks like that should be a fairly good union there. Hit accept. Now what I may decide to do is go in and trim out some of this extra, just because I don't know how it's going to affect it. We don't want that big, so let's shrink the size down. Hit escape and try that again. Yeah, here we go. Now we can get rid of some of that. We can zoom in and do some of that if we need to. Now we can do some sculpting once we get it done, so we don't necessarily have to get all of that out. But if there's anything that we're sure is going to cause a problem, or we think is going to cause a problem, it's better to get it out now. So I think we're looking okay for now. So the head's highlighted. I want to hold down Shift and click on the body so that they're all highlighted together. Then I'm going to come over here. It brings up this menu that we haven't seen yet. I'm going to click on Boolean Union. When I do that, it's going to take a few seconds, but it's going to join that until that is all one item now. If it looks fine, we're going to go ahead and hit accept. Uh-oh. So it did not union those. So let's try this. Let's click on the head. We'll click edit. Let's click make solid. What that should do is fill in everything inside. Okay. And we're going to do, so we'll accept that. We're going to select the body. Go make solid. One thing I've noticed is sometimes that does get rid of some of the detail when you do that. Not sure why, but since we're printing fairly small, it should be okay. We're going to hit accept. Now we should be able to highlight both of these again and click Boolean Union. Okay. Hit accept. And now it's all one piece. Now, if we have any weird spots, we look up here, we've got, it seems to blend together fairly well, but we can see here where it's kind of jagged. We can use some of the sculpting tools, and you'll just have to play with this a little bit to make that work. So I use the flatten. We can adjust the strength, we can adjust the size. That circle will show us how big that is. We can adjust the depth, how deep it goes in, and I haven't played with the laziness yet, but we can go in and we can play around with this a little bit and smooth it out so that we don't have that jagged division there like we had before. If there's something that sticks out or looks kind of weird, my nose is kind of pointy, I could come in here and I could flatten that a little bit. My ear's a little weird here, I could flatten that a little bit. There's a lot of things you can do from here, and you'll just have to play with that. Once you're all done and you're happy with how your model looks, you're going to save it. In this case, it'll save it as a Meshmixer file. Oops. And then we're going to export it as either an OBJ or an STL. It doesn't matter which, because our 3D printers will read either of those. I'll just stick with the OBJ, hit save. Yes, we'll go ahead. Sometimes it'll work. If it doesn't work, we can pull back our Meshmixer file and we can play with it. There are some other tools in here. You may decide to play with those and see what they do, but that's the gist of it. So you'll export it, and then you can import it into the Up Studio and get that 3D printed.